Hello and welcome to Sound Mind, Sound Body. And today I'm excited to receive Marni Wandner. Hello, Marni. How are
Hi,
you
Izzy. Thank you so
doing?
much for having me. So good to see you.
Yes. So we met last year during Future Music Forum, and that was a great encounter.
Yeah, that was such a fun day. It was so great to meet you after knowing you online for a while and then being able to just chat after the conference and just hang out for a little in beautiful Barcelona. That was pretty amazing.
Yes, and we were also with other coaches. There was Eileen
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Ariane. That
Yeah.
was
That was really nice. It's like a
quite
mini summit.
interesting. Yes, I loved it. So for the viewers, I'm gonna introduce you. Let me look up. So Marni Wandner is a board certified integrative health coach and executive coach working primarily with creatives, entrepreneurs, musicians, and music industry professionals. Marni coaches through a holistic lens, drawing on her over 20-year background as a music business and marketing executive and entrepreneur, as well as her own recovery from burnout. She's here to help her clients build sustainable careers doing the work they love. She works with clients on everything from stress management, mindset shifts, and productivity to healthy eating, energy levels, and better sleep. She offers one on one coaching and also partners with organizations to present workshops, facilitate group sessions, and design wellness and professional development programs. And we see you everywhere. Like, keep on seeing like a podcast where they interview you or you're speaking at a conference. Wow, please tell me more about how did you start with your coaching practice?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. I love what you do, and I love this series. I mean, I started coaching. I started the first coaching program I ever enrolled in when I recovered from burnout. I was running a marketing company. I ran the marketing company for about 12 years, but I was about 7 years into running it. And I hit a wall. I was fried. I was didn't know the term burnout because this was about 10-ish years ago, and we didn't really talk about that in that sense. But I was, you know, I was beyond depleted in all the ways, mentally, physically, emotionally. And I really didn't know how to get myself out of it. So I ended up working with a few different integrative practitioners. I changed a ton about my life and how I was living and working. I changed my diet, which is why I became really, really interested in the dietary and nutritional ways to prevent and recover from burnout, which I know we're going to talk about today. Um, and I, ended up wanting to help people myself. I'd always been interested in wellness. And even when I thought I was being pretty healthy, it turns out that I was not really supporting my body and my brain in the way that I needed to. So I was started looking for ways that I could help people the way that I got help. And I discovered health and wellness coaching, and I enrolled in a year-long program so I could do it while I was running my business. I loved it. Um, I got certified in 2015. And then since then, I've added a bunch more certifications along the way. I got board certified earlier this year, and it's just been an amazing journey. Yeah.
Wow, congratulations. You're really an example for me because you you've been like leading laying out a path for new generations of health and well-being coaches like me.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we're all kind of figuring it out. It's a relatively new thing. When I started my program, there weren't that many places to get a certification, and now there are a lot. And so I feel like we're all in this boat, figuring out what it means to be a coach, a health coach, a wellness coach, and all these different ways. And it's really exciting.
Yes. So you got your certification in nutrition coaching, right?
Yeah, technically it's I'm an integrative nutrition health coach. Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me more about this?
Yeah. So the original certification that I have, I've also gotten certified in gut health, and the Chinese five elements is something we can talk about as well. I know that we've talked about that a lot. But my main kind of certification as an integrative nutrition health coach is really around this holistic view of nourishing our bodies and our brains. And what I loved about the training and what I love about that type of coaching is that it's not limited to what we eat. There's, talk in the training that I went through about primary foods, which is, the difference between the food that we eat and the things that actually nourish us 360 in a way. So our relationships, our career, any spiritual practice we might have, that includes things like meditation and mindfulness, how we feel about our finances, how often we cook for ourselves at home, how we move our bodies, all of these, how our sleep is, right? So all of these things are our primary food. It's how we nourish ourselves in a holistic way. And then obviously part of that is the secondary food, which is the food that we put in our bodies, which is extremely important as well. But if all of that other stuff is pretty messed up, we can eat all the broccoli in the world and it's it's not going to help that much. You know what I mean?
Right. Like this makes me think about like what we put inside in terms of like watching the news, for example, or like
Yep.
scrolling too much. It's like, oh, yes, or like who is in our environment, what type of people we have in our circle. It's like, okay, we need to be mindful with that.
Yeah, exactly. Like thinking about, we talk about the word diet, which unfortunately we associate with like a restrictive type of eating, but really diet is just what we eat. But we can also talk about our media diet. We can talk about our relationship diet, right? Like what are we consuming in all the ways that are not necessarily nutrition, but in addition to that, what are we consuming into our brains, into our emotional state, and what are we letting in? It's really, really important to curate that.
Totally, yes. And so I'm curious because you mentioned the Chinese medicine influence in nutrition. Do you want to share about like maybe the five elements or like how the different type of foods can influence on our emotions?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, the type of Chinese elements that I work with, I mean, they're all the same, so it's wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. Although in some places I think it's referred to as air, not metal. So there's kind of a little bit of difference there. But um, I practice in my work. I use a methodology called the five archetypes, which is a methodology built around the Chinese five elements as they are. If you've ever had, I mean, I know that you're very familiar with them, but if anyone's ever done acupuncture or seen a Chinese medicine doctor, TCM doctor, you would maybe hear about the elements, or the doctor themselves would be using the elements to diagnose you, or help you heal. I don't necessarily use it in that way because I don't have that type of certification, although I read a ton about it and I can see myself at some point. We've talked about this, like going down that road. It's amazing. It's so powerful. And I'm a huge fan of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. But I generally use the elements to help my clients understand themselves better and help them understand their strengths and help them understand where they get in their own way, and how they can use this information to forge a path towards accomplishing their goals. And it helps me understand them, so it's like a shortcut in terms of our work together. It helps them understand them. It helps them understand other people in their lives because we all have all five elements in us. um, and then in terms of food, it's kind of the most helpful thing I think about using the elements in the way that I use them, is that it helps people understand why they maybe are not eating the things that they quote unquote should eat, or why things are difficult for them, in terms of how to nourish themselves. And not that doesn't just include food, but why is it hard for me to nourish myself? If I'm an earth person, where primary earth, where I find it a lot easier to nourish other people. That's my go-to, right? And then that's also how that person can burn out, because they're nourishing and being there for other people, and then they put themselves last. So that's just one example, but that's the kind of bigger picture.
Wow, great. Thank you. And I'm curious about like when a client comes to see you, do you have questions about how they're feeling, what emotions they're feeling? Do you have like a diagnostic survey, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do. I have a questionnaire. So it's like an intake form. Um, and so any new client I work with, before a first session, I send them this questionnaire, and it includes questions about their stress level, their lifestyle, how many hours a week they work, what do they do to relieve stress at this point, their sleep, their current nutrition, really a lot of questions about all of this stuff, their goals. And one of the elements of no pun intended, but one of the elements of the questionnaire is a link to fill out the 5 archetypes assessment. And that assessment was created by an incredible woman named Carrie Davidson, who is my dear friend and also my 5 archetypes mentor, where I got certified in the methodology. And so that it's like a questionnaire within a questionnaire, where then I have, the client take that self-assessment, and we use the results of that assessment to deeper understand where they're coming from and all the things that we talked about before.
Wow, that sounds super interesting. I went on her website when you shared about this, and it's like really complete, and it really almost motivated me to sign up for her course.
She's amazing. I highly recommend it. She's absolutely incredible, and just in so many ways, and I've known her for a very long time at this point, and she's so incredibly authentic in everything that she creates. And I'm just such a fan of what she's built, because I can see it working. But yeah, I highly recommend, check her out. I'm always happy to introduce people too, because she's amazing. So let me know.
Yes, like you can send me by email the link to her website, and we can share that in the description of the video, and
Yeah, absolutely.
of course the follow up. Yes,
Yes.
spread the
Yes.
love.
Yes. I love her. So yes.
Can you tell us a bit about what do you recommend to reduce stress and anxiety?
Oh, just that. Just that little question. Um, oh my gosh, there's so much. There's so much. Where should we start?
Like, say someone has a lot of stress because they've been traveling too much, for example.
Okay, that's great. So I think, just to back up, yeah, in any situation, when you have, and there's also a difference between stress and anxiety, of course, there's also good stress, there's good anxiety. So it's really, the first step is to assess, what am I feeling? What's going on? And to your point, why am I feeling like this? Oh, I've been traveling a lot. Could that be contributing to my stress? Am I stressed because I'm not making the time for things that are important to me, that fill me up with, energy and good stuff? Am I spending more energy than I get? So, obviously, when we are in a deficit of energy, we are on the road to burnout, because we've been spending more than we are getting or receiving. And traveling is a great example of how we can spend energy. It can be, we can get energy from traveling, especially depending on, to your point earlier, who are we traveling with? Where are we going? What are we doing on these travels? Even a fun vacation can expend energy and make us feel exhausted. But then, when we get there and we're filled with all of these amazing people we're seeing and things that we're doing, we get replenished. It's when we're not replenishing ourselves, that we start feeling the bad stress and the bad anxiety. And so really the first step when we're feeling like this is, oh, what's been going on in my life? Where have I been spending my energy? Where am I intentionally replenishing my energy? And how can I fix that ratio? Because I always say we can't fix what we are not aware of. So once we're aware of like what's going on, because sometimes it's not so obvious. Sometimes it is obvious, like, oh, well, I've been working 24 hours a day and traveling, and okay. Sometimes it's sneaky, you know?
Totally, totally, yes. It's a bit about like what's in, what's out. Like, do we nourish ourselves? Do we do our self-care practices? Do we eat correctly? Because like when we travel, sometimes we don't have access to the food we need, or like we eat like super late. Sometimes when we finish a concert. Or a gig, there's nothing open and you just have to go to junk food. It's like that's so terrible. What do you have like tips that you can share for artists and professionals who are on tour?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the number one tip that I give people on tour, whether they're artists or crew or, industry people traveling a lot, is to plan ahead. And it's really crucial. Um, we're going to be in those situations where it's late at night, there's nothing open, you know, we do our best, right? But if 80% of the time even we're preparing, and planning ahead where we have something in place, knowing that we're probably going to be in that situation, how can we have something on hand that, you know, if most of our food or a good chunk of our food is stuff that makes us feel good and that we can plan to have that, then we're way ahead of the curve. And then we can allow for those times where like, yeah, there's all that's available is pizza. And I want the pizza. That's fine. That's okay. Um, People are always like, "Oh, you're a health coach. Do you eat, you don't eat this, you don't eat this." I'm like, "I eat whatever I want." I just, like intentionally knowing, okay, if I eat this, probably not going to feel my best tomorrow. What do I have to do tomorrow? Do I need to, use my brain in a specific way? And also like what's available right now. Sometimes, you know, we just don't have the choices that we want. But the more we can plan ahead, the more we can prepare, and know, really the first step of that is knowing how food affects us, and then being able to prepare to have those types of foods on hand or accessible. Where can I get them? Can I get them earlier in the day from a market that is open before all the markets and restaurants are closed? What do I have available to me? Do I have a fridge? Do I have a cooler? Do I have a microwave? If I don't, what does that mean in terms of the things that I acquire for that week or that day? So really kind of putting that planning into place, and then allowing for those times where you're just gonna have to be like, whatever, it's it's pizza. That's okay. It
Once in a while.
has to be, we can't be, we're not gonna be perfect. There's no right way, so to speak. It's we all have things that we have to know how the things affect us, and then we have to be intentional about it. So there are going to be times, it's a fact, where we're going to eat things that we're like, well, is this the best choice for me? No. But is it what's available right now? Yes. And can I make the best choice out of all the not great options that are available? I'm at a gas station, what can I get? you know can I get a packet of nuts? Can I get, so there's options that, there, can I find an apple somewhere, a banana, like what can I eat? What things can I cobble together to, get what I need? I need some protein. I need some fiber. I need some good fat. I need these vitamins so that my brain's working well. But where do I look? What foods do I look for that have those things in it so that I can kind of create this for myself?
Yes, totally. And I was wondering, for clients you work with in the music industry, do you know if they have started to ask for special menus when they have the catering uh, for
Mm,
for their concerts? Do you
like
see
for their
that?
riders.
Yes, for the rider on their riders.
The short answer to that is it depends where someone is in their career. Unfortunately, bands that are kind of just starting out, or a few years in, or it doesn't really matter the timing, but kind of the level of the artist, it can sort of dictate how much say they have over their writer and what's in the writer. But I do work with artists of all levels to tweak that a little bit, because sometimes it's not that you need this like big expensive spread, it's just a this instead of that. And so even if you can plan ahead, this is the planning. If you can if you do have a writer, if you're at the level to have a writer, what can you put in there that's not a ridiculous ask, that also is foods that make you feel good. If you don't have a writer, well, how can you plan ahead? If you're playing a club, do you get a buyout? What are the options for you to be able to use money to buy what you want, instead of getting whatever food the venue is going to deliver backstage after the show, or even after sound check or something. So knowing what the venue is offering is a really good place to be, because then you can sort of ask some questions and tweak it to your needs, without being like quote unquote difficult. I think a lot of artists are worried, especially when they're kind of up and coming. They're worried about being a difficult artist by asking for too much, but there's ways to ask for what you need and want. And knowing the questions to ask and knowing how to get out of these venues what you need can be really helpful. And even the timing, what time are we getting there? Do we have time to do like a grocery store run at a non-gas station kind of store? Do we have a cooler backstage, a fridge backstage? Are we staying in a hotel, or do we need to like get some ice to refresh the ice in our cooler for the band? Like, just all of these things, it's all planning.
Yes, definitely. I recently I've seen like on stage for one DJ, he had a whole plate of fruits, and I thought that was really good to that he had that option.
That's really cool. It was on stage with him.
Well, like he was DJing and be backstage, it was there, yes.
Backstage. Okay. I thought you said it was on stage. I'm
Well,
like, that's
like
like next level.
backstage, but like backstage, which like if he turns around, he could ask the tour manager to give him a bite.
That's great. Was he playing like a really long set?
Yes, 4 hours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it's like, all right, what do I need? And that, because he planned, right? So that's a great example of planning ahead. Do I have all the water that I need so that I can stay hydrated for a DJ set that lasts 4 hours under all the lights and stuff? I'm gonna sweat. I'm gonna be dehydrated. Do I have what I need? And then experimenting with it, right? What do I need to keep going for 4 hours? He's clearly done the homework on what works for him in that 4 hour span. It's like a runner doing a marathon, or, some kind of long run where they have to experiment with like, what do I need to power me through? It's not a ham sandwich, right? Like, but let me try it and see what is it? What is it not? And what is it? For him, it was a plate of fresh fruit that he could say, okay, well, I know, a couple hours in, I'm going to need a bite of like a pineapple, and then I can keep going.
Yes, totally. Because and in addition, because this is an artist who's like really like high energy, he jumps all over the place during his set. So he's like he definitely needs vitamins.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's that would have been such a cool thing to find out, like, what was the experiment process in how he figured out that's what he needs, that it's not too heavy where he can't eat and continue playing and jumping, but it's not nothing, and so it's that right amount of food that can keep him going. That's really cool. That's such a cool thing that you saw that and that you were like, "Oh."
I thought it was really neat that he had that, not only booze, And
Yeah,
talking
exactly.
about booze, I'm curious about what do you advise to your clients regarding alcohol consumption?
Yeah, that's a good question. And there's so much coming out about how like no amount of alcohol is quote unquote safe or okay. We used to think like, oh, one drink, a day for women, two or three, sort of had these guidelines, right? And then we also had the like, drink red wine, it's good for you because it's got, resveratrol. So now there's a lot of different data coming out. I advocate for what I call mindful drinking. I didn't make that term up. That's kind of how I refer to it for my own lifestyle. And also it depends very much on your relationship with alcohol, right? So some of us can definitely do the mindful drinking thing and drink on occasions, when there's a celebratory thing or we feel like it, but what does that look like? Is it once a week? Is it every couple of weeks? Is it one drink at a time? If you are somebody that's not possible for, that's a little bit of a different story. But I also think that it has a lot to do with how you metabolize alcohol. I mean, there's a lot of research on how alcohol affects the brain, also obviously the body. But when you drink alcohol and you pay attention to how you feel mentally, physically, emotionally, a few hours later, the next day, then you can start to see, well, what is my body doing with this? And then you can compare that to when I don't drink alcohol, how does it feel? And it's the same thing with sugar and all kinds of processed, all kinds of different things that we can substitute. But it's really individual. And I'm never prescriptive with like, this is the right way to do something, because we all have very different relationships with all of these different types of foods and substances, and we work in an industry where it's ubiquitous. So if someone tells me I really want to not drink anymore, we can work on that together. We can talk about it. And there's a lot of other stuff that comes up in that too. Is it for health reasons? Is it, is there an addiction at play? So yeah, that was a very long answer, but there's no, kind of cut and dry answer to that one.
Yes, this is a big topic. As in the entertainment industry, there are a lot of temptations, and everything is like almost just there for you. And I mean, it's the only industry where officially you can consume whatever you want on the job. Whereas
Right.
in other works, in other professions, you're not supposed to consume intoxicants when you're working.
Right. Or, it's probably the only industry that I can think of that there are some people paid in alcohol, it's like, oh, we don't have a budget, but we'll get you some beers. That's, quite different than many other industries, where usually people get money for their work instead of alcohol. So, I think we are kind of coming out of that a bit, but it's still pretty rampant, with smaller venues, younger band, more up and coming bands. And it's something that's baked into our industry, unfortunately.
Yes, I'm curious. I saw that in New York there is a bar that is having spirits that are alcohol free. Have you got a
Hmm.
chance to go there?
So there's 4 bars that I know about that are alcohol-free bars, zero proof bars. Um, I've been to one, and I cannot remember the name of it, but it's in the East Village. But there are 4. There's a really awesome account. Well, there's a woman that runs an account and a kind of organization called Zero Proof Nation, where she has a map of, I guess it's the US, but maybe might be worldwide, that where she maps out zero proof bars and zero proof bottle shops. So that is a really cool resource for people that are looking for stuff like that. And then there's another account, like a social media account, and I'm blanking on the name, but I think it's Third Place. I'll get back to you on that, and you can share that with your audience. But they do pop-up events that are zero proof. And they have a wide array of brands that they partner with and things like that. So does Zero Proof Nation as well. But it's a great space to look for, find other people that are also, NA or they're either no alcohol or low alcohol, and they want to you know be in a space with other people that are like-minded. And there's also a lot of bars in New York now that are serving non-alcoholic spirits. So whether that's like kin elixirs in a can, or whether that's like Bon Buzz in the bottle. I've seen what's the other one that I like? Um, I'm blanking on some of them, but there are some real, and Seed Lip I've seen in some restaurants. Some of them are, I love talking about this, so this is like kind of a tangent, but there's some of them are like functional, they're non-alcoholic, but they've got, things like adaptogens and, things like ginseng and rhodiola and stuff like that. So there's all kinds of different things you can look for. There's also a really great, I just want to talk about this festival in DC called the Mindful Drinking Festival, which is in a really cool
Wow,
festival every
that's
year.
interesting. I didn't hear about this before. How you say mindful?
Mindful Drinking Festival.
Wow, okay.
So all of the different products that are available to buy in non-alcoholic bottle shops, and now I think some regular bottle shops are selling them as well. So yeah, it's an exciting time for like no and low alcohol alternatives for sure.
Yes, it looks like there's a whole trend, and that in the US and in UK they're more advanced. And just recently there was an event in Ibiza that was one of the first alcohol-free event. And
Wow.
I'm also looking at bringing my part here in Barcelona.
There was a two men at the conference that we were at. They have something called Beber Sin.
Yes,
You know
so
them, right?
so I'm ambassador for Beversin.
Oh, great. That's amazing. Yeah, I thought that was really cool what they're doing too. They set up so people could sample all the different non-alcoholic drinks that they had.
So yes,
Really
let's see
cool.
what we can do with them. They have like I tried a spritz with non-alcohol cava and non-alcoholic spritz, the part that gives the taste.
Yeah, like an Aperol type thing.
Yeah, and alcohol-free Aperol type. Yes. So
Yeah.
so that can be like the right summer mocktail.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so many different options. And then obviously then you're looking at like, okay, this is great. This is a great non-alcoholic, option. What's the sugar content? That's something that I always have people look at too, because a lot of these options, because there's no like, it's like the sugar in it gives those non-alcoholic beverages the viscosity so that it's not just like watery. So if it's very high in sugar, it's still, is it better? It's like, okay, it's not alcohol, but now it's like the amount of sugar that you'd have in a day. So there's some really good options too that have like no added sugar that are great. I'm a big fan of Curious Elixirs. They have really great options, and they're already like kind of mixed, and they've got adaptogens in them, and you just open it up and pour it over ice, and kind of a done deal. But yeah, there's a lot of really good options. It's a cool time for this. And it's not as like, what are you drinking? It doesn't have alcohol. It's kind of like, oh, that's really interesting. I feel like the judgment. I mean, I live in New York. I feel like, maybe I'm in a little bit of a bubble, but there's a little less judgment on, oh, you're not drinking? Why? I think it's still there a little bit, but I remember in, 10 or so years ago, if I wasn't going to drink at, at an event, people would be like horrified.
Yes, I hope it's changing. Eileen had was talking about this recently, saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
well, you say, oh, I'm not drinking. Oh, are you
Oh, are
pregnant?"
you pregnant? Yeah. Which you
So
would never ask a man, obviously. So why
yes,
would you ever say, it's just, and people I think don't know what to say. I think they're just like, they immediately want to know why, which is fine. I think the curiosity is great, but like, that's not really the right question to ask.
exactly. Yes. I'm curious about like things we eat and drink. What's your view on coffee?
Mm, I love coffee personally. Um, I also consider myself a mindful coffee drinker. I was talking about this with a friend the other day. I think that, we all have different reactions to coffee. I don't think that coffee is quote unquote bad for you. I also don't think it's a quote unquote superfood. I think, we get out of stuff what we need, but um, there are some pluses to coffee, there are some minuses. I would say if you overdo it with coffee and you are relying on it to keep you awake, maybe something to investigate. Why am I doing that? Am I not getting great sleep? Am I not getting enough sleep? Am I on the road? And of course, I'm not getting enough quality sleep. And so I'm relying on coffee. What else can I do in place of that? Are there techniques that I can restore myself during the day? For sure. Like maybe it's yoga nidra, or maybe it's a little nap, or maybe it's breath work, or maybe it's exercise or a brisk walk, or there's all these different other things. But we like coffee, we want to drink the coffee to keep us in that feeling. But coffee is also a drug, so using it mindfully. I personally have uh, a coffee in the morning, and then if I want to have a coffee after that, it's usually a decaf, because I maybe just want to have the coffee feeling, but I want to be mindful of how I'm feeling, because I tend to be a little anxious if I drink too much coffee. So, that's my thought. And also, you'll see now too, they're manufacturing coffee sometimes with L-theanine in it. You can also take L-theanine before you drink a cup of coffee if you tend to feel jittery, but it's an amino acid that can help bring down the jittery feeling in coffee while you still experience the good effects. So that's just something to keep in mind as well.
All right, interesting. And do you know about the drinks that there's like coffee substitutes with mushroom in it? Do you know about these? Can you share your thoughts on those?
Yeah, I think there's some really good options. There's mud water. There's a whole bunch that there's Four Sigmatic, I think it's called. And they have like mushroom blends, whether they're reishi or cordyceps lion's mane, usually are the three. I think they can be great. I think with those, just, again, watch for added sugars, because a lot of them are like powders that you just put water in. But if they don't have a lot of other stuff that you're not interested in consuming, sugars, some of them have dairy, but a lot of them don't. I'm a fan of dairy, but if you don't do dairy, um, but yeah, and there's a lot that are kind of like, I think there's one, I forgot what it's called. I want to say maybe it's called like Nourish, but it's spelled Know. I think that's it. But yeah, just look around at all the different um, products, because there's so many now. And there's some that you can add to coffee. There's some that have coffee and mushrooms. There's some that are just, alternatives. There's things like dandy or dandelion. I forgot what it's called, but it's like a dandelion brew, where it's essentially dandelion tea, but it's got, I think, maybe chicory root in it and sort of has a coffee flavor. There's also something called Creo brew, or cry, I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's basically cacao nibs that you brew like coffee. It has no caffeine, um, but it's also got antioxidants because it's from cacao nibs. So it's not a mushroom coffee alternative, but it's a nice alternative to coffee as well.
All
There's
right.
so much out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's all these new products, new complements, and it's like because they say like the health industry is just like exploding, and so
Yeah,
apart from services and people supporting other persons,
yeah,
there are all these products. It's like
yeah.
massive.
It's massive and it can be overwhelming. And I think, there, to your point, like the mushroom coffee, that's its own little industry, right? It's like, and there's so many different ways. And I would say anytime you're trying out products, just read the labels really carefully and just make sure that really it's the sugar that gets added. That's kind of a something to kind of just keep track of. Um, just make sure that you're down with all the stuff that's in it and that it kind of fits with everything else that you like to put in your body, and try stuff that's, everyone has their own taste preferences, the preferences of how they feel when they, consume something like that. But there's really cool options now. It's, very interesting time for wellness products for sure.
Yes. All right. Well, Marnie, I think we talked about many things here. Is there like one last thing you want to share that you would want to talk about and we didn't touch yet?
I mean, I know that, I can talk forever about like the, nutrients in food that can help with stress and anxiety. And I know we didn't really touch on that, but I do have a worksheet on my website. So if you go to my website, just marniwandner.com, on the about section, if you scroll down, there's a link to there's a box to download a worksheet, like a cheat sheet. It's not a worksheet, it's a cheat sheet on foods to eat to manage stress. Um, so those are just a list of foods that can help you if you are feeling anxious and stressed and you're not really sure why, and you want to sort of get a little bit of a handle on it using your nutrition. Um, I would say that that's a good place to start. And there's a little bit of an explanation of why, which vitamins and minerals are in all these foods to kind of help mitigate the symptoms of anxiety and to mitigate your stress response.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I will share with everybody your website and your socials so they can learn more about you and contact you directly. And thank you very
Awesome.
much for this,
Yeah,
Marnie.
thank you for having me. I always love chatting with you. It's always really fun.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.